I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here I am. It's something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Betrayal, especially from your own blood, cuts deeper than any knife. My name is Astrid. I was married to Patrick for several years. He was wealthy, powerful, and provided everything I could ever need. But there was one thing I couldn't give him: children. We tried everything. IVF, prayers, medications. Nothing worked. It broke me, but I kept myself busy with work. I worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital, not just because I loved my job, but because I didn't want to feel like a burden to Patrick. He provided for me, yes, but I wanted my own independence. Then my younger sister Laura came back into my life. Laura had always been the reckless one. She had a child with a man who abandoned her, leaving her homeless with a newborn baby. She had nowhere to go, and my heart ached for her. I insisted she move in with us until she got back on her feet. Patrick was against it. "This is a bad idea," he said. "You're bringing unnecessary stress into our home." But I begged him. If we help her, maybe God will bless us with a child. He finally agreed. Looking back now, I wish he had stood his ground. At first, things were fine. Laura was grateful, always saying how lucky she was to have a sister like me. Patrick, surprisingly, was very good to her. He took care of her baby like his own, made sure she never lacked anything, even bought her expensive gifts. Then things started changing. Patrick, the same man who hesitated to take her in, suddenly became too involved in her life. He took her shopping. He took her out for lunch. He made sure she had everything she needed. I should have seen the signs. Laura, who once acted like a guest, started acting like the lady of the house. She walked around like she belonged there. She even started dressing differently, sexier, more confident. But the worst part? They were drugging me. Every night, Patrick would pour me a glass of wine or tea, and like a fool, I drank it. What I didn't know was that they were slipping sleeping pills into my drink so I would pass out, allowing them to meet in secret. While I was unconscious, my husband and my sister were in the next room, betraying me. One night, something told me not to drink the wine Patrick handed me. I pretended to sip it, then acted like I was getting drowsy. But I stayed awake. Around midnight, I heard whispers and soft laughter coming from Laura's room. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs quietly. With shaking hands, I pushed the door open. And there they were, Patrick and Laura tangled together in bed. Laura gasped and pulled the covers over herself, but Patrick? He didn't even look guilty. He just sat up, watching me. "I was going to tell you," he said coldly. Tears blurred my vision. I couldn't breathe. My own sister, my own husband. I ran out, shaking, crying, feeling like my world had ended. The next morning, I went straight to our parents, thinking they would support me. But what they said broke me even more. "Astrid, try to understand," my mother said. "Patrick needs children, and you can't give him that." "So what about my pain?" I cried. "Forgive Laura," my father said. "At least she's keeping Patrick's wealth in the family. If he marries her, he will still take care of us all." That was when I realized I was completely alone. Patrick wasted no time. He told me he wanted a divorce. "I need a wife who can stay at home, raise my children, and not work 12-hour shifts," he said. "I want a family, and Laura can give me that." He had already made me sign a prenup before we married, so I walked away with almost nothing. Meanwhile, Laura was already living the life I built. He bought her a car, took her on vacations, gave her everything. But what they didn't know was that karma never forgets. A few months later, Patrick suffered a huge financial loss. A bad business deal cost him millions, and suddenly, his wealth wasn't as secure as he thought. Then, Laura's past came knocking. Her ex-boyfriend, yes, the same one who abandoned her, suddenly showed up again. A private investigator I hired caught them together, in an intimate embrace. I made sure Patrick saw the evidence. Devastated, he demanded a DNA test on the baby he thought was his. The results? The child wasn't his. Laura had been lying to him all along. Patrick went crazy. He threw her out immediately. She had no money, nowhere to go. So she ran back to our parents. The same parents who once praised her and turned their backs on me. But this time, they weren't so welcoming. Since she wasn't bringing in money anymore, she became a burden to them. They made her life miserable, reminding her every day of her mistakes. She was stuck with 2 kids, struggling the same way she had been when I took her in. After the divorce, I focused on myself. I started a fertility and wellness business, and it grew beyond my wildest dreams. Soon, I was making my own wealth. Then my parents came crawling back. "Astrid, we were wrong," my mother said. "Please forgive us." "If we had known," my father started. "If you had known what?" I interrupted. "That I would be successful? That Laura would fail?" I almost helped them for the sake of my niece and nephew. But then I remembered, when I needed them, they turned their backs on me. Now, they could deal with the consequences. Betrayal is painful, especially when it comes from family. But the best revenge? Success. I lost my husband, I lost my sister, I lost my family. But in the end, I found myself. And that was worth more than anything they could ever offer me.